Captain Elizabeth Morgan never expected to feel small. At 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and a commanding presence, she rarely found herself intimidated. Yet sitting in the giant dome-shaped room of the Galactic Council, surrounded by alien beings from 100 different worlds, she felt tiny. The air in the council chamber smelled like cinnamon and electricity. Strange lights danced across the curved ceiling. Elizabeth shifted in her seat, which was clearly not made for human bodies. Her back ached. "The classification results have been confirmed," announced Counselor Vexala, her voice like bells ringing underwater. Her skin was almost see-through, showing the soft blue glow of whatever passed for blood in her kind. "Earth is officially designated as a Class 12 Deathworld." A murmur passed through the chamber. Elizabeth frowned and leaned toward her science officer. "What does that mean?" "Dr. Wright?" she whispered. Alan Wright, a man with curly brown hair and tired eyes, looked troubled. "Their scale only goes to 10, Captain." Elizabeth blinked. "Then how can we be a 12? "That is precisely the issue," Vexala continued, her 4 slender arms moving in what Elizabeth had learned was a gesture of concern. "The human planet exceeds our established parameters for hostile environments. Your gravity is crushing. Your atmosphere is filled with corrosive oxygen. Your world teems with dangerous microbes and predators. The temperature swings would kill most civilized beings." Elizabeth stood up. As the first human captain to represent Earth at the Galactic Council, she couldn't let this stand without comment. "Counselor, with respect, we find Earth quite pleasant. It's our home." The aliens exchanged looks that Elizabeth recognized as pity, even on their strange faces. "Of course you do," said another council member, Zithra, his metallic scales catching the light as he moved. "You evolved there. You are adapted to survive constant threats. This is why the council finds your species so fascinating." Elizabeth wasn't sure she liked the way he said fascinating, like they were interesting bugs under a microscope. "What does this classification mean for Earth joining the Galactic Confederation?" asked Elizabeth. The council members shifted uncomfortably. "There are concerns," said Vexala. "Deathworld species sometimes develop aggressive tendencies. It is a natural response to surviving harsh conditions." "We're not aggressive," Elizabeth protested, then realized she had raised her voice. She took a breath. "Humans are explorers. We want to learn and share knowledge. Yet your history contains countless wars," noted Zithra. "We've moved beyond that," Elizabeth said. "We've been at peace for 70 years. "A blink of time," dismissed another counselor. Elizabeth felt her patience wearing thin. "We've come 30 light years to establish friendly contact. We've followed all your protocols. What will it take to prove ourselves?" The council fell silent. Finally, Vexala spoke. "Perhaps a cultural exchange would be appropriate. A small human delegation could visit one of our worlds, while we send scientists to study Earth." "Which world?" asked Elizabeth, hopeful. The council members looked at each other, communicating silently. "Elysium," Vexala finally said, though she didn't sound happy about it. A wave of surprise moved through the chamber. Even with her limited understanding of galactic politics, Elizabeth recognized that this was significant. "Elysium is our jewel," explained Zithra. "A perfect Class 1 world, the most hospitable environment in charted space." "Class 1?" asked Elizabeth. "What does that mean?" "Paradise," said Alan quietly beside her. "They're offering to let us visit Paradise." "This is highly irregular," protested another counselor, this one a floating cloud of purple gas contained in what looked like a glass bubble. "Deathworlders have never set foot on Elysium. The cultural contamination will be minimal," cut in Vexala. "A small team, heavily supervised. It will show our good faith and allow us to observe human reactions to a proper environment." Elizabeth didn't like the way that sounded, but she couldn't pass up this opportunity. "We accept," she said quickly. "When can we begin?" "In one standard cycle," said Vexala. "Select 3 representatives, including yourself if you wish. They should be your best, most controlled, most adaptable." The way she said the last word made Elizabeth uneasy. Later, back on the human ship Horizon, Elizabeth called her senior staff together. "They think we're savages," said Communications Officer Frank Chen, pacing the meeting room. "Did you see how they looked at us, like we might start breaking things at any moment? They're afraid of us," said Lieutenant Nancy Rodriguez, the security chief. Her dark eyes were thoughtful, but also curious. "Both," agreed Alan. "We're the first Class 12 species they've encountered. We're living proof that their understanding of habitability is flawed." Elizabeth nodded. "And that's why we need to handle this exchange perfectly. The Confederation includes over 400 worlds. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. We need them as allies, not enemies." "Do we really need to visit their paradise world?" asked Frank. "Sounds like a trap." "Or a test," said Nancy. "Definitely a test," said Elizabeth. "And we're going to pass it. Alan, you're coming with me. We need your scientific expertise." "I'll need all my equipment," he said, already making mental lists. "Nancy, you too," added Elizabeth, "but no weapons." Nancy frowned. "Captain, no weapons," repeated Elizabeth. "We need to show them we're not the savages they think we are." "What about me?" asked Frank. "I need you here, monitoring communications. And if something goes wrong..." Elizabeth didn't finish the thought. That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She stood at the viewport of her quarters, looking at the massive Confederation station that orbited the neutral meeting world. Its spiraling arms glowed with lights from 1,000 different species going about their business. Somewhere out there was Elysium, paradise. A world so perfect that its residents considered Earth a nightmare. What would it be like? Would humans even find it pleasant, or were alien standards of paradise too different from their own? "Computer, show me the Confederation classification again," she said. The display shimmered to life, showing the scale, Class 1 through 10, with Earth alone, a 12 Class 1 paradise, perfect atmospheric conditions, mild temperature range, minimal pathogens, low gravity, no dangerous flora or fauna. Class 10, extreme, barely habitable with technology. Class 12, Earth. Elizabeth shook her head. There was something they weren't telling her. Something about Elysium or about humans or both. Tomorrow they would begin preparing for the exchange, and soon after, they would discover if paradise was all it was claimed to be. Dr. Alan Wright had never seen a more beautiful world. The shuttle doors opened to reveal a landscape that made his heart stop. The sky was a soft purple-pink, with 3 small moons visible even in daylight. Rolling hills covered in rainbow-colored, plants stretched to the horizon. In the distance, crystal towers rose like giant jewels catching the light. "It smells like honey and mint," said Nancy Rodriguez beside him. The security officer took a deep breath. "And something else I can't name," Alan nodded. Earth's best gardens couldn't compare to the natural beauty here. No wonder the aliens called it paradise. Behind them, Captain Elizabeth Morgan stepped out of the shuttle. Her face showed the same awe Alan felt. "Welcome to Elysium," said their guide, Salvir. The tall, willowy alien's skin shimmered in the sunlight. "Please move slowly. Your bodies are still adjusting to our atmosphere." Alan checked his instruments. "The air is safe for us. Oxygen levels are actually higher than Earth's." He took off his mask and the others followed his lead. Salvir looked worried. "You remove your protection so quickly? Are you sure this is wise?" "We're fine," Elizabeth assured him. "Our bodies adapt easily to different conditions." This clearly troubled Salvir, but he said nothing more about it. "Please follow me to your living area. We have prepared special quarters for your stay." As they walked, Alan noticed something odd. The path they followed was perfect. Too perfect. Not a stone out of place, not a single dead leaf. Even the grass-like ground cover was exactly the same height everywhere. Their quarters turned out to be a large dome separate from the main alien city. It was beautiful inside, with flowing water features and living plants growing from the walls. But Alan noticed it was completely sealed off from the outside. "Why are we isolated?" asked Elizabeth, noticing the same thing. "For cultural adjustment," explained Zalvir quickly, "and for your comfort. We have attempted to create an environment similar to Earth conditions." Alan frowned. Nothing about this place felt like Earth. It was too perfect, too controlled. That night, after their hosts left, Nancy paced the common room. "We're being treated like lab animals," she said. "Did you see how they watch us, taking notes on their devices when they think we aren't looking?" "They're scientists, just like me," said Alan, but he shared her unease. "They're studying us, just as we're studying them." "I'm going outside," Nancy suddenly decided. Elizabeth looked up from her data pad. "Lieutenant, that might not be wise." "They never said we couldn't leave," Nancy pointed out. "Just that they prepared this place for our comfort. I want to see this paradise world for myself, without guides watching every move." Elizabeth hesitated, then nodded. "Take samples of anything interesting, but be back before dawn, and be careful." Nancy slipped out through a side exit that didn't seem to have any alarms. The night air of Elysium felt even better than during the day. The 3 moons lit everything in silver light. Nancy walked along a path leading to a garden area filled with fruit-bearing plants. The fruits glowed softly in the moonlight, pulsing with inner light. Nancy reached out and picked one that looked like a cross between an apple and a peach. It felt warm in her hand. She knew she probably shouldn't eat alien fruit without testing it first, but something about this place made her feel safe. She took a bite. The flavor exploded in her mouth, sweet and tangy and unlike anything she had ever tasted. A warm feeling spread through her body, and she suddenly felt more awake and alert than she had in years. She picked several more fruits and headed back to show the others. When morning came, their alien hosts arrived in a state of clear agitation. Zalvir rushed to scan Nancy with a handheld device. "You consumed Elysian moon fruits," he said, his voice filled with worry. "How do you feel?" Nancy smiled. "Great, actually. They were delicious." Zalvir turned to his assistant, Pelna, and spoke rapidly in their native language. Alan caught words. "Like impossible and biological difference, is there a problem?" Elizabeth asked. "No, problem," said Zalvir carefully. "We are simply surprised. Those fruits contain compounds that are mildly toxic to most species, yet you show no ill effects." "Humans have robust detoxification systems," Alan explained. "Our bodies can process many compounds that might harm others." The aliens exchanged troubled glances. Later that day, Elizabeth received a message from Frank Chen back on the horizon. "Captain, something strange is happening with the alien scientists on Earth," he reported. 3 of them have been hospitalized. Apparently they're having severe allergic reactions to pollen. "Pollen?" Elizabeth repeated. "But they're wearing full environmental suits." "Their suits can't filter everything," Frank explained. "And Earth has millions of different kinds of pollen. They didn't expect so much biological diversity. Their medical team is overwhelmed." Elizabeth shared this news with Alan and Nancy. "It confirms my theory," said Alan. "Their paradise isn't objectively better than Earth, it's just better for them. They evolved in much more controlled environments." "Do you think Elysium is natural?" asked Nancy. "Everything seems too perfect." Before Alan could answer, alarms began blaring throughout their quarters. Zalvir rushed in, visibly distressed. "We have an emergency," he announced. "A weather pattern has developed unexpectedly. We must move you to a secure location." The humans followed him outside. Dark clouds had gathered overhead, the first they'd seen since arriving. A strong wind was blowing, bending the colorful plants. "This is just a thunderstorm," said Elizabeth, confused by the panic. "We have these all the time on Earth." "Elysium does not have storms," said Zalvir. "This is highly unusual, most concerning." As rain began to fall, nearby aliens rushed for cover, some crying out in alarm. Several delicate structures in the garden began to collapse under the modest wind. Elizabeth and her team didn't run. Instead, they began helping, securing loose items and assisting aliens who seemed frozen in fear. Alan noticed that the rain felt perfectly pleasant on his skin, not too cold, not acidic like some earth rain. "This is what they call a crisis," Nancy whispered to him as they helped an elderly alien to shelter. "This would be a nice spring shower back home." Alan watched as Zalvir frantically operated a control panel on his wrist device. Moments later, the rain began to lessen and the clouds started to break up. "Did he just, control the weather?" Alan asked quietly. Elizabeth overheard him. Her eyes narrowed as she watched the storm dissipate as quickly as it had formed. "I think," she said slowly, "we need to learn exactly how natural this paradise really is." 1 month into their stay on Elysium, the humans had mapped out most of the area around their compound. Their alien hosts grew more nervous with each passing day as the humans continued to show no negative effects from exposure to the paradise world. Frank Chen's voice came through the secure communication channel. Elizabeth, Alan, and Nancy gathered in their private meeting room to hear his report. "Captain, the situation on Earth is getting worse," Frank said, his image slightly distorted on the screen. "The alien scientists can barely function even inside their environmental suits. 5 more were sent back to their homeworlds yesterday. They say our air is too full of microbes, our gravity hurts their bones, and the temperature changes are making them sick." Elizabeth frowned. "They've only experienced early spring conditions, nothing extreme." "That's just it," Frank continued. "What we consider normal, they consider extreme." Dr. Martinez asked one of them what the temperature range was on his homeworld. "He said it never varies more than 2 degrees throughout the entire year," Alan whistled. 2 degrees? Earth's daily variation is more than that in most places. "Meanwhile, we're thriving here on their paradise world," Nancy pointed out. "I've never felt better, actually. I'm sleeping less and have more energy." "There's something else," Frank added. "I've been analyzing the data you've been sending. Those fruits Nancy ate? The chemical structure suggests they're engineered, not natural." Alan nodded. "I've suspected as much. Everything here feels designed." Elizabeth stood up. "We need proof. If Elysium is artificial, I want to know why they're hiding it." When the transmission ended, Nancy pulled out a small device she had been working on. "I modified one of our mapping drones," she explained. "It's small enough to avoid their detection systems. We can send it beyond the areas they let us visit." "Do it," Elizabeth ordered. That night, while their alien hosts thought they were sleeping, the team gathered around a display showing the drone's video feed. The drone flew high above Elysium, capturing footage of the landscape beyond their permitted zone. "Look at that," Alan said, pointing at the screen. The video showed a section of the forest suddenly changing. Trees that had appeared dead or diseased were rapidly replaced with healthy ones. Animals moved in patterns that seemed too regular. In one clearing, the ground itself seemed to ripple and reform. "It's like the world is resetting itself," Nancy said. "Keep watching," Elizabeth instructed as the drone continued its flight. Soon the drone discovered something even more surprising: a massive circular opening in the ground, hidden within a valley. The opening led to an underground facility. Through gaps in the covering, they could see machinery and aliens in protective suits working on control panels. "Maintenance facility," Alan said. "I knew it. This whole world is maintained artificially." The next morning, the humans decided to confront their hosts. They found Zalvir in the garden examining some plants. "We need to talk," Elizabeth said firmly, "about what Elysium really is." Zalvir's skin paled. "I don't understand." Alan stepped forward. "We know this planet is maintained artificially. We've seen the control facility." Zalvir looked around nervously, then sighed, his shoulders dropping. "Please, not here," he whispered. "Come with me." He led them to a small building they hadn't been allowed to enter before. Inside, displays showed monitoring systems for everything from air quality to wildlife movements. "You weren't supposed to discover this," Zalvir said, his voice sad. "No species has ever learned the truth so quickly." "And what is the truth?" Elizabeth asked. Zalvir touched a control panel and a large display lit up showing a map of the galaxy with worlds color-coded by classification. The truth is that no naturally evolved species could survive true Class 1 conditions, he explained. Elysium is manufactured perfection, maintained at enormous energy cost, as are all Class 1 through 3 worlds in the Confederation. But why hide this? Asked Nancy. Because the entire Confederation is built on the belief that we have transcended natural evolution, Zalvir said. That we have created perfect environments where no suffering or hardship exists, where nothing is left to chance. Alan shook his head. That's not how life works. Life needs challenges to adapt and grow stronger. Precisely why your Earth is so frightening to us, Zalvir admitted. Your species evolved through constant challenge. You adapted to survive almost anything. We have not faced real environmental pressure for thousands of years. Elizabeth was about to respond when alarms began blaring. Red lights flashed on all the displays. What's happening? She demanded. Zalvir frantically worked the controls, his four-fingered hands trembling. Major system failure in the Central Environmental Complex, he said, his voice rising in panic. The primary controls are going offline. Can't you fix it? Asked Nancy. Not quickly, the backup system should engage, but... His voice trailed off as more alarms sounded. This is impossible. The backups are failing too. Alan looked at the readings. What does this mean for Elysium? It means this world will begin to revert to its natural state, Zalvir said, true fear in his voice. A state no one has experienced for over 2,000 years. How bad could it be? Elizabeth asked. For us? Catastrophic. Temperature variations, unfiltered sunlight, natural weather patterns, microbes allowed to evolve without control. Zalvir shuddered. We must evacuate. Immediately. All Confederation citizens must leave. What about us? Nancy asked. Zalvir looked at them with new eyes. You might survive. Your bodies are adapted to far worse conditions than anything Elysium could become naturally. Just then, Pelna burst into the room. The evacuation order has been given. All non-essential personnel must report to the spaceport immediately. What caused the failure? Zalvir asked. Unknown, Pelna replied. But systems are failing planet-wide. Council believes it may be a coordinated attack. Attack? By whom? Elizabeth demanded. Pelna looked at the humans suspiciously. That remains to be determined. We had nothing to do with this, Elizabeth stated firmly. Perhaps not intentionally, Zalvir said. But your presence has coincided with the first major systems failure in Elysium's history. Outside they could hear the sounds of panic as aliens rushed to evacuation points. Through the windows, Elizabeth saw clouds forming in the previously perfect sky. Wind began to blow, something they had only seen once before during their stay. What happens to the people who don't make it off-world in time? Alan asked. They will face conditions their bodies are not designed to handle, Zalvir said grimly. Elizabeth looked at her team, then back at Zalvir. We'll help, she said firmly. We know how to survive changing conditions. We can teach your people. Zalvir stared at her in disbelief. You would help us? Even after we deceived you? That's what humans do, Elizabeth replied. We adapt and we help others do the same. Chaos took over the beautiful city of Elysium. Aliens ran through the streets toward the spaceport. The perfect blue sky darkened with storm clouds. Wind bent trees that had never known strong breezes before. The temperature dropped several degrees, causing the aliens to shiver in their thin clothing. Elizabeth and her team stood with Zalvir at a command center, watching as emergency ships filled with frightened citizens. How many people live on Elysium? Elizabeth asked. Nearly 1 million, Zalvir replied, his skin pale with worry. But our evacuation ships can only transport about 700,000. What about the rest? Alan asked. They will have to wait for rescue ships from other worlds, said Zalvir. But that could take days. Days in conditions they aren't prepared for, Nancy noted. Elizabeth made a quick decision. We need to set up emergency shelters for those who can't leave. Places where they can be protected from the changing conditions. Zalvir looked doubtful. Most of our buildings are not designed for environmental variations. They are mostly decorative. Then we'll have to adapt them, Elizabeth said firmly. Alan, what's the worst-case scenario for Elysium's natural state? Alan checked his datapad. Based on the planet's position and atmosphere, we're looking at temperature swings between maybe 50 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Possible rain, wind, minor storms. Nothing that would be dangerous on Earth, but for beings unused to any variation, it could be deadly, Zalvir finished. Our bodies have lost much of their natural ability to adjust to changing conditions. We need to organize this, Elizabeth said. Nancy, find out how many people will be left behind and where they'll be concentrated. Alan, identify the strongest structures that can be converted to shelters. Zalvir, we need access to all your medical supplies and emergency resources. As they worked, a message came through from Frank on the horizon. Captain, we've received an emergency broadcast from the Galactic Council, he reported. They're blaming humans for the Elysium crisis. They're saying we introduced contaminants that damage the control systems. Elizabeth's face hardened. That's ridiculous. We've been closely monitored the entire time. Maybe not the entire time, Nancy said quietly, thinking of her nighttime exploration and the drone they had sent out. It doesn't matter now, Elizabeth decided. We focus on saving lives first, politics later. For the next 12 hours, the humans worked without rest. They organized the remaining aliens into groups, moving them to the most stable buildings. They taught them how to layer clothing for temperature changes and how to secure structures against wind. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Catherine Martinez was dealing with her own crisis. The few alien scientists who hadn't yet evacuated were deteriorating rapidly despite their protective equipment. I don't understand, one of them said weakly. We designed our suits to protect against all known Earth hazards. Catherine checked his readings. Your suit is working fine. The problem is that Earth's environment is constantly changing. New pollen types, shifting air pressure, humidity variations. Your systems can't adapt quickly enough because they're programmed for specific threats, not for continuous adaptation. She had an idea. Let me adjust your suit's programming. Instead of trying to filter out specific threats, we'll make it focus on maintaining your body's equilibrium, regardless of external conditions. The alien scientist looked scared, but nodded. Please try. On Elysium, the first real rain began to fall. Many aliens had never felt water falling from the sky before. Some panicked, believing it was acid. Elizabeth stood in the rain, showing them it was harmless. Your world is returning to its natural state, she explained to a group of frightened Elysium residents. It's not a catastrophe. It's just change. But change means discomfort, said an elderly alien. Discomfort means suffering. Sometimes, Elizabeth agreed, but it also means growth. Earth changes constantly. Hot summers, cold winters, storms, calms. Those changes pushed us to adapt, to become stronger. Inside one of the emergency shelters, Alan worked with Zalvir to modify the environmental controls. The system is still trying to maintain perfect stability, Alan explained. That's impossible now. We need to reprogram it to allow safe variations instead. But any variation is potentially dangerous for us, Zalvir protested. Only because you've never experienced it, Alan replied. Your bodies still have the basic ability to adapt. You've just never used it. As night fell, the temperature dropped further than anyone expected. Many aliens began showing signs of cold stress. Their bodies weren't used to producing extra heat. Nancy organized them into groups, showing them how body heat could be shared. Sit close together, she instructed. Share blankets. Your bodies will generate heat naturally if you let them. By morning, something remarkable had happened. The aliens, who had followed the humans' instructions, were not only surviving but showing signs of adaptation. Their bodies were slowly remembering how to adjust to changing conditions. A message from the Galactic Council arrived, demanding that the humans leave Elysium immediately. They were accused of sabotage and biological warfare. Elizabeth refused. We will leave when everyone is safe, she replied. Right now, we're the only ones who know how to help these people survive. The Council threatened to send warships, Frank reported that the Horizon was being ordered to leave orbit around the neutral meeting world. Hold your position, Elizabeth instructed him. Keep our communication channel open. The Council needs to see what's happening here. On day 3 of the crisis, the first rescue ships arrived from nearby worlds. The Confederation officials were shocked to find not the disaster they expected, but organized groups of Elysium citizens adapting to their changing world. One high-ranking official confronted Elizabeth. "What have you done to these people?" "Taught them how to survive," she answered simply. "How to adapt. Something your Confederation forgot long ago." "This is against everything we believe," the official said. "Controlled environments are the foundation of our civilization." "Maybe your foundation needs to change," Elizabeth suggested. "Life isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to adapt." As more rescue ships arrived, news spread through the Confederation. The humans from the Deathworld were helping Elysium citizens survive conditions the Confederation considered catastrophic, and some of the Elysium residents were choosing to stay. 6 months after the Elysium crisis began, Captain Elizabeth Morgan stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Council once again. This time, she was not alone. Behind her stood not just Alan and Nancy, but also Zalvir and several dozen Elysium citizens who had chosen to stay on their changing world. The council chambers were filled with tension. Many representatives from across the Confederation had demanded this meeting. The events on Elysium had shaken the foundations of their society. "Captain Morgan," began Counselor Vexala, her voice formal, "you stand before this council accused of interfering with the natural order of Confederation society." Elizabeth stepped forward. "With respect, Counselor, there was nothing natural about what happened on Elysium. Your society has been maintaining artificial environments for so long you've forgotten how to live with change." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "The system failures on Elysium have been examined," continued Vexala. "Our experts have determined they were not caused by direct human action. As we've been saying all along," Elizabeth noted. "However," Vexala continued, "they may have been triggered by the presence of human microbes that evolved on your death world. Organisms capable of adapting and changing in ways our sterilization protocols couldn't predict." Alan stepped forward. "Even if that's true, it only proves our point. Life adapts, it changes. When you try to create perfect stability, you create perfect weakness." Zalvir moved to stand beside the humans. "Council members, I have lived through the Elysium transformation. For 2 months I experienced conditions we were taught would be deadly. I felt rain on my skin. I endured temperature changes. I ate food grown in soil that contained microbes. And you survived," noted another counselor with surprise. "More than survived," Zalvir said. "I have changed. My body has remembered abilities it had long forgotten. My immune system is stronger. My mind is more alert. I feel more alive than I have in my entire existence. One case does not change. Our understanding of proper living conditions," said a counselor, from a world even more controlled than Elysium had been. "It's not just one case," said Nancy, gesturing to the Elysium citizens behind them. "Over 10,000 Elysium residents chose to remain on the planet rather than evacuate. They're learning to live with natural conditions again." "And what of the environmental control systems?" asked another counselor. "Will they be repaired?" "Some of them, yes," Elizabeth replied, "but not to create artificial perfection, only to prevent true dangers while allowing natural variations. The people of Elysium are finding a middle path." Now Dr. Catherine Martinez stepped forward. She had arrived from Earth 2 days earlier with important news. "Council members, I've been working with your scientists who visited Earth. We've made a breakthrough. By studying how humans adapt to changing conditions, we've developed new environmental suits that work with the body's natural responses rather than trying to block all external inputs. Your scientists are now able to explore Earth with minimal discomfort." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing data from both Earth and Elysium. Alan explained what they were seeing. "These readings show improvements in immune response, cellular regeneration, and neural activity in Confederation citizens who have been exposed to controlled environmental variation. In simple terms, a little challenge makes the body stronger." The council fell into deep discussion. Elizabeth and her team waited as the debate raged. Finally, Vexala called for silence. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain Morgan?" she asked. "A new classification system," Elizabeth said firmly. "One that measures not just environmental stability but adaptive potential. Earth isn't a death world, it's an adaptability world, and that's a strength, not a weakness." "You want us to change thousands of years of civilization based on 6 months of experience?" asked an elderly counselor, clearly shocked. "No," Elizabeth replied. "I want you to remember what your ancestors knew before they built these artificial paradises. That life thrives on challenge, not on perfect stability. Some of our worlds could never return to their natural states," Vexala pointed out. "They were too harsh to begin with. And they should remain controlled," Elizabeth agreed. "But not every world needs to be a perfect paradise. Your people have lost something important by living only in perfectly controlled environments." Zalvir stepped forward again. "Council members, the humans have a saying that I have come to understand deeply. Smooth seas do not make skilled sailors. By removing all challenge from our lives, we have become weak. Our bodies have forgotten how to adapt. Our minds have forgotten how to solve unexpected problems." The debate continued for hours. Finally, the council reached a decision. "The Confederation will establish a committee to study the Elysium transformation, as it is now being called," announced Vexala. "We will consider revisions to our world classification system, and we will explore the benefits of controlled environmental variation." It wasn't everything Elizabeth had hoped for, but it was a start. As the council meeting concluded, dozens of representatives approached the human team with questions. Many were curious about Earth and how humans had maintained their adaptive abilities despite developing advanced technology. Later, in a private meeting room, Vexala spoke with Elizabeth alone. "You have changed us, Captain Morgan," she said. "For better or worse, the Confederation will never be the same." "Change isn't always easy," Elizabeth replied, "but it's necessary." "Your Earth was never truly a death world, was it?" Vexala asked. "Not to us," Elizabeth smiled. "It's simply home. And now, you have helped some of our people find a new home on a changing Elysium," Vexala observed. "A world that is neither perfect paradise nor harsh wilderness, but something in between." "The best places to live are rarely perfect," Elizabeth said. "They're just full of possibilities." As Elizabeth prepared to return to Earth, she looked out at the stars from the observation deck. The first human Confederation exchange program was already being planned. Brave Confederation citizens would visit Earth to experience its challenges firsthand. Human experts would visit Confederation worlds to help them safely introduce beneficial environmental variations. The Death World classification was being rewritten, and while humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning, they had already brought an important gift to the galaxy: the power of adaptation. The strength that comes from facing challenges rather than hiding from them. Earth wasn't a death world after all. It was a living world. And now, other worlds would remember how to truly live as well.